Welcome back to DaveyDacusGuitars. So, a friend of mine who dabbles in guitar work as well has been building a Strat, and the neck he's chosen to use, I believe, has been on a couple different guitars, has had a couple different sets of neck screw holes drilled in it, and they are not fitting very well anymore. We tried to dowel them with a softer wood, but it just wasn't enough to hold the tension of a neck, so I'm going to have to make my own dowels out of some hard maple. I'm going to start by just choosing any board. It doesn't need to be too thick. I prefer them to be about this thickness, or even a little bit thinner than this would be fine. I'm going to drill a hole in it the size of the dowel that I need, and I'm angling it slightly down. I don't want to be exactly perpendicular to the front. I want it, the hole on the back of the board, to be slightly lower than the hole on the front. This is where you pick your size dowel here. Whatever size hole you drill, that's the size dowel you're going to get. Here you could choose any method you want, but I think the hand plane is about the most accurate way to do it. All I'm doing is planing down the top until I start to see the hole come through the top surface in the front, the hole that's higher, and this is going to allow me to clamp my chisel onto this board in a way that is tangential to the dowel rod going through, and it's going to cut in a pattern that will create that exact size hole. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. It's a little difficult to describe, but you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. I do have a video on that vise, not really a full build video, but it is a video making a couple improvements, and I'll break it down to kind of show you how it works if you're interested in that. Alright, and there you can see I'm just starting to see the top of that hole, and that's where I'm going to clamp my chisel. Only a few things you need to know here. Number one, that chisel needs to be really sharp. You will have to fine-tune its location. Like if it's not cutting enough, you'll have to bump it in a little bit. If it's cutting too much, you'll have to bump it back out. And I'm just trying to get you a little better view there so you can see. Also clamp it at a slight angle. That seems to help it cut a little bit. And that's basically ready to go over there. We just need to prepare our piece of wood to make a dowel out of it. And first I'm just sending it through the bandsaw with a temporary fence clamped on, and all I'm doing is getting it roughly this size. We need to get this thing as close to round as possible before we try to send it through, in particular because I'm using a very curly maple to do this with. Probably the plainer grain you could get would work much better. So I'm going to stick it in a drill and run it on a few different kinds of sanding surfaces and a little bit by hand as well, to just get it as close as possible to size. You won't make 100% of these into dowels. Lots of them will shatter. I experienced a decent failure rate, and part of the reason for that is likely trying to use that curly maple to do this with. So when I do finally send this through my board and chisel over there, you're not going to see a ton of material removed, and that's because I was just trying to play it really safe and just trying not to burn up so much of this curly maple scrap that I had, because it is useful for things like this and other things I need hardwood scrap for. So it's going to be very close to size beforehand. You can get it fairly close to size and probably even passable by hand, but if you really want that to be exact, like if you want to drill a hole with a drill bit and then make a dowel to the exact same size, this way is going to give you better results than doing it by hand only. Now here I'm just starting out a little bit of an angle, making that front piece just a little smaller than the rest. And my drill's of course in reverse so that I'm cutting into the chisel there. Alright, I'm starting off really slow. I'm trying not to let that thing take too big of a bite, because your drill twisting will just shatter that dowel rod if you're not careful. I've also applied some paste wax in there to try to lube that up a bit, and I saw that my chisel here was not taking big enough of a bite, so I'm just going to knock it in just a little bit farther and test it again. Alright, just taking my time, trying not to have this piece of wood shatter on me. And I can see that it is trying to stick just a little bit, so I've decided I want to lube it up a little bit more. And just keep going. It might take you a little bit to get this down, a few tries. One thing you can do is try to mimic the angle that you originally drilled that hole in. You'll have to follow that pretty closely, or you could enlarge the back of the hole up to that point where the chisel is contacting. That's the only point that's really vital to the diameter there. You can see that's doing it pretty well, getting me right to the size I need to be at. You just have to be really careful and you will get there with it. I'm sorry the autofocus wasn't working with me very well today. Also, sorry about the lighting. It's decent, but you can see in the background there, one of my shop lights has went out on me, so I'm going to have to do something to replace that. You can see the tip there is more narrow than the drill bit itself, because I did that to ease starting it, but it is pretty much ready to go. Alright, so there's the finished dowel rod. That's the micrometer on the drill bit, 0.215 inches. There's the micrometer on the dowel I made, 0.215 inches. Alternatively, you could use something like a plug cutting set to do this with. I just don't own one, and this is free, so you know, works for me. That we're going to fill the hole here as the other three have been filled, and that's that. Now the neck's going to be rock solid in this guitar. Also a note, not all those tool marks are mine. There are several there from the different sets of screw holes and plugs that have been in it already. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want some similar content, and you all have a nice day.